GaySA Radio, where you are family. This is Ray, and today I'm chatting to Ethan, one of the executive producers of The Steam Room. So tell us the creation behind The Steam Room and the production and how everything came together. How did it happen? How did you put it together? And all of that.
So The Steam Room is quite a hectic show to produce. It's basically my entire job at the moment. Like 80% of my job up until now for the last 2-3 months has just been working on The Steam Room. So it's a 3-hour radio show with about an hour and a half worth of content depending on each show. And it has so many moving parts. So basically there's a couple different segments that are stock standard in every episode. So we have this concept called Vox Pops, which is basically when you ask people, real people, their opinions on certain topics. So The Steam Room always starts off with an introduction and then goes into the Vox Pop. So that in itself is a whole task to get done because you have to interview people that are interesting, have interesting things to say, hopefully aren't actually part of the station, some external voices. So we have to do a lot of interesting things to do to get that content. The open mic days, the series of events we're doing is the main way that we got these Vox Pops. So inviting some men over, chat to them about various issues, and then also sending our messages to friends of friends and things through WhatsApp, sending voice notes back. And then when we have to, even interviewing some people at the station who hopefully aren't on air or on air often and getting their voices. So there's that. That's just one segment. Then we had to find different experts, get their interviews. We have a whole radio play every single week. And that required us actually hiring out some freelance actors, recording that entire thing, editing it down, adding all the sound effects, all the music. There's a lot. And then other production recordings included things like event interviews and various other interesting little segments we did, like the one anonymous condom chat we had, which is coming up later in the show, and all kinds of different experimental bits of content that we had to do. And that's excluding the entire scripting process, which we had to outsource, the recording of those scripts for the narration, finding the narrators, getting them a time to record. So it's a huge, huge process to record, produce, and cut up The Steam Room. And then there's still all the post-processing that needs to happen to turn it into a podcast, to get it onto YouTube. So it's not just me who did this, it's myself kind of overseeing the entire process, Ray, you, sourcing a lot of the content. Some of the internal people are doing other interviews as well. And then we have a guy at the station, Peter, who is responsible for making sure that all of the stuff gets podcast and put on all the different platforms. So I'm already out of breath. There's a lot that needs to happen to make the Steam Room a reality.
Absolutely. Lastly, now that we are done with season 1 of the Steam Room, is there anything that you took away from this entire experience, especially just producing the show?
Yeah, so we realized as we were doing this that we were doing certain things out of order. We were doing a script before we had interviews done. Like we would have the narration recorded already, but wouldn't have some of the interviews ready yet, which made it difficult to get the narration to gel with the interviews. So we've detailed the production plan for the next season of the show, where the idea is we first record interviews with experts who understand the topic in detail, and also record interviews with MSMs who have experience with the topic at hand. So for example, if we were going to do something about threesomes, we'd talk to somebody, probably Bruce from Anova Health, about threesomes, and then we'll talk to some MSMs. Then once we have all our content gathered, we'll then start the scripting process, script the entire thing, then get the narration recorded. So then the script gels a lot more with the actual show and everything kind of makes a bit more sense. So the main thing we learned was that we were doing things out of order. And the other thing we learned was that we could kill many birds with one stone. So for example, the open mic days give us a chance to record like 10 episodes worth of Vox Pops in one go without having to do it a little bit every single week. So those are the main lessons we've learned, I think.
Well, thank you. Also, thank you so much for playing such a huge role in putting this massive show together. GaySA Radio, where you are family. This is Ray, and I was chatting to Ethan Baird about executive producing the whole of the Steam Room.
My name is Johan, and I am the health manager at Out LGBT Wellbeing, a gay organization in Pretoria. and we are basically a health organization for LGBTI people.
What is MSM?
This term was basically, if I can put it this way, coined at some stage internationally because it was recognized that we do not only find gay men who have sex with men or bisexual men who have sex with men or even then transgender males who have sex with men, but it was also realized that there's a fairly large group of men who self-identify as heterosexual and they have wives and children, most of them, and then occasionally they would have a sexual encounter with another man. And to include this group, the term men who have sex with men has started to come into use. Now, these men that I mentioned last, they still do not want to identify as gay or bisexual. They still self-identify as heterosexual, and they still prefer to be in a heterosexual relationship with a woman, and they still love that woman and they want to have their life with that woman, but they, from time to time, have the urge or the need to have a sexual encounter with another man.
So one thing that's very difficult, especially for people like us who work in this space, is trying to get messaging to that last grouping of MSMs, the people who self-identify as straight. How do you target them? How do you talk to them?
Very difficult, Ethan, because this is probably the most hidden group of men under the term men who have sex with men. Gay men, to a fairly large extent, has already come out of the closet, except for those who has not yet done so. But the ones who are out, they are fairly easy to reach because they are out and proud and they are quite visible. The same more and more so nowadays with bisexual men. The bisexual group in South Africa is starting to become more visible as well. But the men who do not self-identify, they are the most difficult group to reach. And I think for obvious reasons, because their behavior is already something that they question within themselves and they wonder, are they now gay or bisexual? So they are already struggling with those type of questions within themselves. Plus, one can imagine that the community would not understand the fact that this is a married man and they are having sex with another man from time to time. So it is very difficult for us to reach them, and the only way that we are able to do it right now is through accessing certain networks of people. So the key for us is to identify a person who has access to a certain network, and then where that person would then allow us to also enter into that network for some reason. So we would typically ask a person, if we identify one of these people, we would ask them if they would be able and willing to recruit people within their network to come to us and to access the necessary services that we provide. There are some that do their own research, and when they find out about us and the services that we offer, if they do that via the internet, they would then make their own appointments and come to us.
Okay, so let's talk about the prevalency of MSMs. It's a difficult number to pin down, but roughly in your estimation, how many MSMs are there in Pretoria and then maybe in South Africa as well?
As you rightly said, very difficult to pin down once again because this group is so hidden. So if one looks at the prevalence of around 11% for gay people and you apply that to the male people in, say, for instance, a city like Pretoria, then one could roughly say that the MSM would add a little bit to that figure, that prevalence of 11%. There was a study done and we used this figure for our programming purposes and to apply for the funding. And there is a figure of around a prevalence of 40,000 in Pretoria alone.
What are some of the biggest issues that MSMs face?
We all know that we have a very favorable constitution since 1994, and since then a couple of laws also consequently changed that are very favorable for the whole group of MSM in South Africa. But one thing that we do see is that unfortunately these laws do not always translate to a level where the typical person on the street would also apply these. We also see that some government officials from time to time do not apply these laws and still discriminate. So back to your question of what problems MSM face is basically discrimination, stigmatization, and also marginalization in the process. Some of it is definitely self-imposed because we have a very high level of internal homophobia against ourselves. If I say we, I'm talking about gay people in general. So one could also say that this stigmatization and discrimination could sometimes be perceived and is not always necessarily real. But we did a survey in 2015. It was actually a repeat of an earlier study that we initially did in 2003, a levels of empowerment study where we measured the levels of discrimination and stigmatization on a health and on a justice level in the country. And it was quite high. So people started asking us, did the levels go down? Did it go up? And therefore we decided to repeat the study in 2015. And the findings are quite alarming. There's still a very high level of discrimination. Out of a little over 2,000 respondents, we found that 49% of those still experienced discrimination or stigmatization or hate crimes perpetrated against them.
What are some of the health issues that MSMs face?
The typical health issues are of a sexual nature, one can imagine. So it's issues with HIV, issues with sexually transmitted infections, STIs. There's also some general issues that men who have sex with men would face. And in terms of these, they don't find it very easy to access services for these typical issues. The reason for that is because, first of all, they are too afraid to come out and go to, for instance, their family doctor, GP, or to go to a public health facility and then disclose to the public health official there what the issues are. Let's say, for instance, there's an STI and the person experiences some symptoms. It's not so easy to talk, for instance, about anal warts or stuff like that. So people don't find it easy to access sexual health services.
You're listening to GaySA Radio, where you are family. This is the Steam Room. My name is Max, and as you already know, that's not really my name. It's a mask I wear to make you and our other friends feel comfortable and free. So, coming up, we're going to listen to a snippet from episode 2, focusing on first-timers. We asked some men to tell us about their first-time experience having sex with other men, and boy, oh boy, did they not give us some interesting answers. This is GaySA Radio, where you are family, and you're listening to the Steam Room.
Did you enjoy your first time? Oh yes, honey, I did. Oh, absolutely yes. It was ground shaking, earth moving. It was just a phenomenal evening. One that can never be replaced.
It was okay. It was okay. It was very scary. I mean, there were so many faults, but then I kind of liked it. Yeah, it was good.
No, I did. I don't know, but I don't know. No, I didn't. I didn't really enjoy it. It was, oh Jesus, it was a bit.
How different is sex now as compared to when you started out? Well, sex now has changed. It's no longer the same. When I was a bit younger, when I dropped it and zipped it, I enjoyed it a bit more than I am now. I don't know if now that there are so many responsibilities and so many things that are too worrisome for me to be thinking about sex that I don't think much often about it, or I'm not even too bothered about it. But nonetheless, when I do have it, I still find it enjoyable.
I don't know. Now I can say kind of like I've gained experience because back then I didn't know what to do, what roles, what role one has to play and everything like that, But now it's like, okay, no, like, okay, there's this and that and this, you need to, do this and that, like, but I just don't know. Yeah, but right now, I mean, like, I'm like an amateur, I would say, for lack of better words.
For me that day, because I did call the guy and I'm like, you know what, I'll do it. But then later, yeah, I did put bleach in my bath because great, now it's better. Because now I have experience and I know how to spice things up. I know how to do things, yeah. So I can say it is better. even though at that time it was kind of special. And nowadays, sex is just for fun.
Were there any feelings of shame or guilt when you started out? I don't remember. All I just remember was that it was just a fantastic time. And if it was a fantastic time, as I'm saying it was, then there probably was no feeling of guilt. How could you feel guilty when you're doing something so pleasurable? Impossible.
Not really, not at all, because I was comfortable with the person I was with, and I was comfortable with myself, that I didn't feel any guilt, and we waited a while before we actually started doing it. So we were both comfortable, and so there was no feelings of guilt or shame or whatsoever. So we were comfortable. So I think it was a good age for us to do it.
Okay, first of all, I prayed about it. But then later I told myself that there's nothing I can do now. We had sex, I had sex with a man. I mean, there's nothing that I can do to change it. So I just have to live with it.
Yes, there was some sort of, guilt that I felt, knowing that I grew up in a Christian family, and I've been told, Sodom and Gomorrah, if, it's forbidden, like, for men to sleep with men, or same-sex people too, the type of thing. So for me, the feeling was right, but then I felt guilty, like I'm doing this, and I even judged myself. I literally felt like I'm gonna burn in hell. Like I felt like, shit, this is bad, I'm not supposed to do this, this is so wrong, I just felt like I'm the worst person, like for me doing such kind of things. It's just like, I just don't know, yeah.
What is your sexual orientation? Well, I'm an auntie, power bottom, a luta continua. We're not cutting any corners. It is what it is, and it's just not going to change. If you bend the ruler, it just might break. So keep it as it is. Auntie.
I'm a gay guy who likes other men, and I'm into booty. I like booty a lot.
Gay. I'm gay.
Do you have any advice for men out there who's considering it? Well, I'd like to tell the men out there who are considering it that, live your life like it's La Vida Loca. Have it, eat it, enjoy it, indulge in it, wrap your legs around it, and pull him in. It's that simple.
Yep, I did. It was protection. That's the only advice.
Don't rush in. Just take your time and don't rush into things. And definitely do not expect anything. Just go into these things with your eyes. Go with the flow. But then do not have any expectations, because you are going to be disappointed. And disappointments will get you heartbroken.
I was 20. Yeah, 20. Wait until you're ready, or just do it when you're ready. When you feel like you're ready, or you're ready, just then do it. So that's my advice. Whatever you want to do, as long as you feel like you're ready and you want to do it, do it. Yeah.